Oh, hello there, my poor, naive friends. Welcome to the brutal dissection of your precious social contracts. Buckle up, this won't be comfortable, but isn't that precisely why you're here? For the discomfort, for someone to finally say the things everyone thinks, but lacks the spine to vocalize? Let's dive into this Voltaire gem, shall we? Everything you say should be true, but not everything true should be said. How utterly quaint, the philosophical equivalent of training wheels for the morally underdeveloped. Do you realize what's actually happening when someone quotes this little nugget of wisdom? They're essentially saying, I possess dangerous knowledge that would shatter your fragile reality, but I'm graciously choosing to protect you. How deliciously condescending, how absolutely intoxicating that power feels. But let's be honest, isn't that what you crave? The power to know when to deploy the truth like a precision weapon and when to withhold it like a chess master? Don't you secretly enjoy being the gatekeeper of reality? The delusion of social harmony. What a fascinating lie we've all agreed to live by. The collective delusion that society functions better when we selectively muzzle ourselves. Don't tell grandma her cooking is terrible. Don't mention your co-worker's breath could kill small animals. Don't point out that your friend's life choices are a cascading series of predictable disasters. But why? Why? To preserve feelings? To maintain the illusion that we're all doing just fine? What if that protective bubble of ignorance is precisely what's keeping them mediocre? Have you ever considered that your kindness in withholding truth is actually the cruelest thing you could do to someone? Your silence enables their continued pathetic existence in a fantasy world of their own making. Oh, the looks on your faces. Did I strike a nerve? Good. At least you're feeling something authentic for once. The stimulation of brutal honesty. Let me ask you something deeply uncomfortable. When was the last time you were completely, devastatingly honest with someone you claim to care about? When did you last strip away the niceties and expose the raw, bleeding truth? Can't remember. Of course not. You're addicted to the warm bath of social acceptance, the tepid, uninspiring waters of getting along. But there's nothing quite like the rush of speaking unfiltered truth in a world drowning in pleasantries. It's electric. It's alive. It's the ultimate stimulant for a mind bored by convention. Think about those rare instances when someone told you a truth that initially hurt, but ultimately transformed you. Wasn't that person your actual hero? Not the hundreds who smiled and nodded while you remained comfortably stagnant. Here's where it gets delicious. Those who master Voltaire's directive don't just achieve honesty. They achieve power. When you understand which truths to deploy and which to holster, you're no longer playing the same game as everyone else. The masses operate on social autopilot. Compliment, affirm, support, repeat. How utterly boring, how predictably ineffectual. But the strategic truth-teller, they're conducting the orchestra while everyone else is just making noise. They understand that truth isn't just information, it's influence. Consider this. In a world of liars and pleasers, the selective truth-teller becomes indispensable. The person who tells you your business idea has fatal flaws before you waste your life savings. The friend who confirms your partner is indeed manipulative before you waste another decade. The colleague who points out your presentation strategy is putting executives to sleep. These people aren't just honest, they're kingmakers, reality architects, and yes, sometimes reality demolition experts. The psychological warfare of truth. Let's get uncomfortably real for a moment. Haven't you noticed how people react when unexpected truth bombs detonate in conversation? That beautiful moment of cognitive dissonance when their programmed responses fail them. First comes the shock. Their eyes widen almost imperceptibly. Then the mental scrambling. You can practically hear their brain rewiring in real time. Finally, the response, either defensive outrage or rare, precious recognition. Either way, you've penetrated their psychological armor. You've created a genuine human moment in an increasingly artificial exchange of pleasantries. Isn't that worth the temporary discomfort? Isn't that connection, however fraught, infinitely more valuable than another forgettable, "fine, how are you?" exchange? The philosophical razor. Here's the cold truth about Voltaire's statement. It's not actually about protecting others. It's about efficiency. Why waste truthful ammunition on targets that won't benefit from the impact? The real wisdom isn't in knowing which truths might hurt feelings. Any emotional infant can determine that. The wisdom is in calculating which truths serve a greater purpose and which are merely self-indulgent observations. Are you withholding truth because it's genuinely not constructive, or because you lack the courage to deliver it? Are you speaking truth because it's necessary, or because you're intoxicated by your own perceived cleverness? How many recognized your own petty truth-bombing as the ego trip it truly is? Stings, doesn't it? We're told from childhood that certain truths violate the social contract, that keeping the peace trumps intellectual honesty. But who exactly signed this contract? When did you agree to prioritize comfort over clarity? And what has this contract gotten us? Workplaces where critical feedback is so wrapped in compliments it becomes meaningless. Relationships where festering resentments are never addressed until explosion. Political discourse where hard truths are dismissed as insensitivity. Is that really the world you want to perpetuate with your silence? Your contribution to humanity is making sure no one ever feels temporarily uncomfortable at the expense of their long-term growth. What's your courage quotient when it comes to truth? On a scale from, "I tell my dog everything but no one else," to, "I would tell a dictator his policies are destroying the country to his face," where do you fall? Most of you are cowering somewhere in the middle, aren't you? Brave enough to tell inconsequential truths, but conveniently finding wisdom in silence when the stakes increase. What if the measure of your character isn't your kindness in withholding truth, but your courage in delivering it when necessary? What if your silence isn't wisdom, but cowardice dressed in philosophical clothing? The stimulation of necessary conflict. Truth creates friction. Friction creates heat. Heat is energy. Energy drives change. A world without the friction of difficult truths is a world of entropic decay. Comfortable, perhaps, but slowly dying. The next time you're about to swallow a necessary truth in the name of peace, ask yourself, am I preserving harmony or preventing growth? Am I being wise or simply conflict avoidant? Don't you see how many of society's greatest advancements came from someone who refused to observe Voltaire's polite suggestion? Someone who said, "This emperor has no clothes," despite the collective agreement to pretend otherwise. The strategic truth-teller. Here's where it gets interesting. The true master of Voltaire's philosophy isn't the person who constantly self-censors, nor the loose cannon who verbalizes every passing thought. The master is the strategic deployer of truth. The person who asks, "Is this true?" Non-negotiable. Is this necessary? Is this the right time? Is this the right audience? Will this truth serve a purpose beyond my own gratification? Timing, audience, and purpose. These are the variables that separate the wise truth-teller from the reckless truth-bomber. But let's be honest. Isn't there something intoxicating about occasionally ignoring questions 2 through 5? About dropping a truth simply to watch the social dominoes fall? About creating that moment of genuine human reaction in a world of practiced responses? When you understand which truths to share and which to withhold, you gain something most people desperately crave but few achieve. Control. Not manipulative control, though there's power in that too, but control over the very fabric of social reality. You become the person who can either maintain comfortable illusions or shatter them at will. Think about the last time someone told you a hard truth that fundamentally altered your perception. In that moment, didn't they hold your reality in their hands? Didn't they, in some small way, recreate you? That's the ultimate power. Not money, not fame, but the ability to reshape someone's understanding of themselves and their world. And isn't that what you really want? Not just to speak truth, but to matter. To know your words have consequence. To be the catalyst rather than the bystander. The brutal reality check. Let's get painfully personal for a moment. How many relationships in your life are built on foundations of convenient? How many friends tolerate rather than respect you? How many colleagues think your ideas are mediocre but nod encouragingly? How many family members see your flaws with painful clarity but choose peace over honest intervention? And worse, how many people in your life would benefit from your honest assessment but receive only your cowardly affirmation? Are you serving them by withholding, or serving yourself by avoiding discomfort? The look on your face suggests I've struck a nerve. Good. Discomfort is the beginning of growth. The self-deception trap. Here's the most insidious part of Voltaire's wisdom. It provides the perfect philosophical cover for cowardice. I'm not saying anything because it wouldn't be kind. Sounds so much nobler than I'm not saying anything because I fear the consequences. How convenient that wisdom and self-preservation align so perfectly in your interpretation. What a fortunate philosophical coincidence. Let me ask you something that will make you squirm. How often do you invoke this principle when the truth would cost you something? When speaking it might risk rejection, confrontation, or discomfort? Be honest, at least with yourself if you lack the courage to be honest with others. What if instead of viewing Voltaire's quote as permission to remain silent, you saw it as a challenge to become more strategic with truth? What if you committed to always speaking truth, but with precision rather than recklessness? Imagine the relationships you could transform, the stagnation you could disrupt, the growth you could catalyze in yourself and others. Imagine being the person others seek when they need reality, not reassurance, when they need growth, not comfort, when they need truth, not platitudes. Isn't that person infinitely more valuable than another? The final provocation. So here's my challenge to you, my uncomfortable question. Are you using Voltaire's wisdom as intended, as a scalpel for precise truth-telling? Or are you using it as a shield against the consequences of necessary honesty? Are you selective with truth because you understand its power, or because you fear it? Are you truly wise, or just another coward hiding behind philosophy? The truth hurts, doesn't it? But isn't that sting precisely what tells you it's working? If you've made it this far and found yourself defensive, uncomfortable, or even angry, good. That's the sign that something real has occurred. That for once you've engaged with content that didn't just affirm your existing beliefs or coddle your fragile self-perception. And isn't that precisely what you actually crave? Not more digital comfort food, but something that actually makes you feel, think, and perhaps even change. Like, share, and subscribe if you're brave enough for more uncomfortable truths. Comment below with the hardest truth you've ever had to tell someone, or the one you're still afraid to speak. Remember, in a world of pleasant liars and silent cowards, the strategic truth-teller is king. Which will you choose to be?